Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. Thank you for joining us. I'm your host, Ben Crossman, and I hope all of you are having a wonderful day. And yeah, we're going to kick off today with, of course, a regular on the show and one of our longest running segments. We have, of course, Mike Cermak from techguy.org, and we're going to get to him in just a minute, where over the course of the hour, we will be covering, tech news and things like that. And we'll have a lot of fun with it. It'll be great. And we'll have everything included in the show notes. And of course, speaking of the show notes, you can check those out at computeramerica.com. That's where you'll find everything and anything having to do with today's show. So be that links to any articles, any videos that we watch, just everything and anything, a link to our guest website, everything will be right there on the homepage. Also, while you're there, be sure to check out the social media contest brought to you by Logitech, and be sure to check out the live video stream, which is brought to you by OWC. All right, so with the morning announcements done, why don't we go ahead and just jump right into this? And joining us, you can hear him there, sounds great, is the one, the only, Mr. Mike Cermak from techguy.org. So, Mike, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great, Ben. How are you doing today?
Yeah, wow, actually, I think... Oh wait, something might happen. So no, I'm doing great. Apparently, I sound.
You do not sound convinced that you're doing great.
I know.
You sound very unsure of yourself.
I know that's not good. But all right, no, we're sure we're great. We're good. We're feeling good. Better than Facebook probably because they a lot of news about them. But in the meantime, thank you for, of course, coming back on. And yeah, before we get started, let's talk about kind of what you do and what you do with techguy.org. Because that's important.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate it. So techguy.org is the website I run called Tech Support Guy. It's been around since 1996. It's one of the first computer technical support forums that ever existed. And it's just grown by leaps and bounds. Trying to remember how many members we have these days, but it's a ton. I wish over 700,000 is what I've written here, but I know it's more than that now. But yeah, it's doing great. We have volunteers there. It's free to use. You go in there, you post a question about anything technologically related, especially computers, and someone will help you out. Another volunteer will help you out. There's no fee to it. It's paid for just by commercials. And while you're there, you probably will find another question that you can answer yourself.
Yeah, of course. And for the longest time, we have to be going on like 15 years or something like that. Techguy.org has been the official help forum of Computer America. So, of course, love to point people there. And if we can't help them on the show, and there's, of course, a lot of you, so, sometimes they're just like, hey, we know for a fact that that's already available. Use the search function. You're good to go. So, with that being said, why don't we go ahead and get started here with a couple of these stories, because you go out, you find stories that seem to interest you, and seeing as how you talk about these small companies that Google, Amazon, Facebook, it might affect people who are listening out there as well. So and like this first one, Microsoft, Nintendo, and Sony. This is one that's always been ever since I was young, I've maybe not sworn on stacks of Bibles. Holy documents really didn't exist. The Constitution was just a piece of paper, of course, a good one, but whatever. And sacred texts just weren't a thing. But when you get your mattress and you find that tag on it that says "Do not remove under penalty of law," it felt like it had weight. And those stickers, these little attachments that manufacturers slap on, and they seem completely ironclad, legally binding. It's been a thing for a while. And you have this article here that says that maybe it's not, maybe it's not really right that they do that.
Yeah. So, that's exactly right. So a lot of computers and electronics and games and other things you get have that little sticker on it that, if you break this sticker and remove the screws and actually look inside this device, then your warranty is void. And it's been a controversial thing on and off for a lot of times for a lot of different products, including up until very recently, we were talking about iPhones. Because iPhones for a long time had the same thing, that if you had anyone other than Apple or an approved Apple vendor work on your phone or replace a screen, then your warranty is void.
Mm-hmm.
And last year they changed their mind on that and decided, well, I guess we'll allow third-party people to replace, iPhone screens. And now the FTC, Federal Trade Commission, has come along and sent a happy little note to Microsoft and Nintendo and Sony and a handful of other companies, Asus, HTC, and said, hey, by the way, you can't do that. People are allowed to get into their devices. They're allowed to make alterations and repair it, and that can't void their warranty. And
I just want to jump in and say that is, I'm not sure, because I know that we were covering a court case over John Deere and farmers, and that's obviously the pinnacle of technology. And
what else would you expect on Computer America? Sure.
Right. Yeah. It's hey,
I joke about that, but some of these tractors are pretty computerized.
That's exactly what it is that they're so computerized that a reasonable farmer who needs their $250,000 piece of equipment, if they need it serviced and they can't be without it, they want to be able to go in and apply updates, apply patches, things like that, and make alterations, send it back. If many people's computers, you have the ability to send it back a week before it was broken, things like that. And yeah, John Deere was clamping down on that practice and not letting people who bought the farm equipment actually make alterations to the software, because they said that because they give continuous updates, they don't technically own the software. They may own the tractor, but they don't own the software. And that led to a lot of friction between who really owns the product that you're using.
Sure. Yep. Oh, and that's been a controversy in a lot of areas. I mean, even in Tesla, I gotta reach out to Tesla. There was a guy who a couple years ago started poking around in the network that is in his Tesla. In the Tesla, there's a main console that is a Linux computer, and that talks over an IP network to different devices in the car. And this guy got into it and started poking around and checking IP addresses inside the LAN of the car, and what ports are open here or there, and what does this thing do, and then getting into the subsystems of it, and got a little note from Tesla saying, hey, yeah, knock it off. You're not allowed to get into that.
and again, it's the weirdest thing, because he owns the car. He should be
That's
able
exactly
to
it, right?
do it. And then to Craig always
but
had this.
I kind of see both sides of this though, Ben. So yeah, he owns the car, but if he goes in there and starts screwing around with things and breaks something, does Tesla then have to fix it under warranty at their cost? I don't know. I kind of see both sides of it.
Yeah, I mean, this is again, Craig always had a bee in his bonnet about the fact that Tesla would sell you a car, and then through a Force update, you could pay some money and you could unlock capabilities that were already available in the car. And it's like, I guess if people had the ability, had the instructions, which are pretty easy with things like YouTube now. You would think that a lot of them would just go under the hood themselves, follow a step-by-step guide, and unlock those themselves without paying the couple of thousands of dollars to unlock it from the manufacturer. But I guess Tesla has a very vested interest in making sure that you don't mess with any of those sensors, because that's a big deal.
Well, sure, and there's I see both sides of it, and that's with a lot of different equipment. Tesla's not the only one that does that. I was just working on a phone PBX earlier today, and it has different modules you can purchase for it. You log in there in the admin area, you can see all the modules and the settings for all the modules, but half of them don't work until you pay a $1,000 license fee for this and $2,000 license fee for that, and all of that. All of the capability is there, and they even entice you by showing you those settings, but you can't actually turn them on without paying for the license unless you're, start logging in. I'm sure that there are people clever enough to be able to bypass that, but I'm not suggesting that they should. I think that makes sense. That way they can offer that same equipment with the basic features at a lower price, and those people who need the premium features can pay a premium price. And because you're not paying just for the hardware, right?
Right.
I mean, you have the hardware, it's capable of doing anything, but you need a lot of really smart people to write the code to make that happen. And then in the case of like cars with autopilot and things like that, you're also paying for some liability on their side, I would think.
No, you certainly are. So, and actually, because we're on Tesla, and I just feel like talking about it real quick, there was an article we didn't get to the other day about a gentleman in the UK who was banned from using his Tesla for 18 months. And this is something that if Tesla didn't ban him, I'm sure that there are probably other legal. Let's see. On top of the ban, the driver has to work 100 unpaid hours, conduct 10 days of rehabilitation, and pay about $2,500 in prosecution costs. What he did was he set the car into autopilot mode, and then he got out of the driver's seat and let the car drive itself while he sat, I think, in the passenger seat, and let it go 40 miles an hour down a busy street. And Tesla's like, we know what you did because we have sensors in the seats. We know that you got out of it. Bad man. And yeah, you're not going to be able to drive your Tesla. Like, I don't know if they like force shut it down or if they just like
no, I believe it was the police who caught him. So he there was a video taken by the passenger of another car that drove past his vehicle, and the Hertfordshire police, I'm sure I'm messing that up,
right,
somewhere near Nottingham, is the one who booked him on it. And I don't know if they were physically there or if they just saw the video and came by after the fact. I think it might be the latter. But yeah, you're exactly right. He's ordered to serve 10 days rehabilitation, fined 1,800 euros, which I don't know what that is in real money, and given 100 hours unpaid work. And but it wasn't Tesla who did it in this case. But they have done things like that before. So when the autopilot system first came out, you didn't have to keep your hands on the wheel. It would beep at you when it felt it needed you to pay attention. But otherwise, you could sit back literally, if you're doing a long trip on a pretty standard highway, maybe even for hours, you could sit back without having to hardly touch the wheel at all.
Right.
But then, we had accidents and we had people abusing it, and we had people doing exactly what this joker did, is jump over to the passenger seat. Or I saw a video of one guy who went into the back seat of the car while it was driving down the highway and, was waving at people and just it's like, and then it's you're going to have an accident or something there, and people are going to badmouth Tesla about it. It's like, that's not what you're supposed to do. Every time, even when you turn the autopilot system on, it beeps and says, pay attention and be ready to take over at any time. And you can't do that from the back seat, idiot. And So Tesla then, in one of the updates, which was very controversial among Tesla owners, they changed it. So now you have to touch the steering wheel I don't know if it's every 2 minutes or something like that, every periodic time. If it doesn't sense that you've touched the wheel in a certain period of time, it'll beep at you. And you only get so many warnings. If it gives you too many warnings during one drive, it shuts down autopilot and says you have to drive manually now. It's not going to let you do autopilot for the rest of this drive.
And then it just puts you into a wall. It's very corporal punishment, but you got to do what you got to do if you're Tesla. But no, and to bring this, again, kind of full circle back to the original article.
What were we talking about again?
We were talking about the fact that companies, they have an interest in making sure that you don't alter their products, because their products are a continuous piece of work. It's software. It's no longer you put something out and you're done. And again, in the case of this article, they mentioned Microsoft, Nintendo, Sony, and a couple others. I think HTC, Asus, and Hyundai, or Hyundai, whatever. They all have to kind of stop putting these stickers in misleading people. But I guess the stickers were an easy way to try to scare people off from opening it up and messing something up. And then by result, you get these stories of, a person replaced Asus battery in his laptop with an off-market part, and it exploded. And now Asus is in trouble in the news. I guess they're trying to shut things like that down.
Sure.
But
Well,
I guess
and there's liability and bad press for it, right? The story is not some off-brand battery caught fire. It's an Asus laptop caught fire. And the guy's going to sue Asus as well as everyone else he can find. Yeah, it's just, I don't know. And then what are they supposed to do? Fix it for free because your off-brand battery toasted the motherboard?
You know what they could do, and I think this is what's going to probably fall out of it, other legal action not withholding, but it's probably going to be, the stickers are going to be there, but they're going to be warning stickers instead of like warranty stickers. Instead of having very sense of finality about them, like if you remove the sticker, you can no longer redeem its warranty or whatever. It's going to be, we recommend you don't do that.
Right.
And
what it is that if you do damage something, then that part isn't actually covered. But I get it from the manufacturer's point of view. They don't want to have to deal with it. And how are they going to prove that that is the thing that toasted the motherboard? And of course, you're going to be wise enough to pull that no-name battery out before you send it back for warranty. Yeah, it's just, I don't know. It's a mess.
Yeah, it certainly is, but I'm kind of looking forward to it because just like you mentioned at the beginning with Apple, the right to repair even the smallest things like a cracked screen. I know that when I do it myself, it's like, 30, 40, 50 bucks. And when I have to send it in, it's weeks without my device, and it's, 3, 4, or 2 or 3 times that. So
right.
These things are important. It's just, honestly, I think it's more about the wording that they use. And again, the sense of, this is legally binding. That's probably what they're getting in trouble over more than, trying to scare people away from messing with their devices. So,
yeah, I think you're right.
Yep. So there's that one. Why don't we go ahead and flip on over to the next one? And, obviously we know about domains. We're going to need a, kind of a brief overview because I'm very intelligent, but I know this, but, I don't know what I'm talking about. So domain fronting, I don't know what that is, but you can, of course, hopefully explain that to us. And Google and Amazon. So yeah, why don't you go ahead and take this one? And I know Russia has never been in the news for anything malicious when it comes to computers. So
right.
This is surprising.
All right. Yeah. So this is a fun story. This is kind of fascinating to geeks like me. So what it comes down to is, in a lot of countries, the governments try to block access to different websites on the internet. And there are various ways of trying to get around that, VPNs, and then the government tries to block VPNs. And this is governments like Russia and China, and there's a number of other ones that were mentioned in this article and the links in it. And then to dig into it a little bit, the technology to be able to block those websites is interesting and difficult to do because, of course, it's an arms race between the people trying to block the websites and the people trying to get around that block. So when you get on the internet, we'll go back to Internet 101. You get onto the internet and you type in computeramerica.com. Your computer goes out and does a DNS request, domain name system, and it says, I want to go to computeramerica.com. What's the IP address for that? And then the DNS servers respond back and say it's 192.168. whatever. And your computer says, okay, and connects over to that IP address and asks for the website. And that's basically what happens whenever you go to look at a website. So your computer isn't actually talking to computeramerica.com. All it's doing is looking up the IP address, which you can think of as a phone number, and then calling that phone number to talk to them. Computers really talk to one another through IP addresses, not through domain names. Domain names are just there for us humans. So all of that said, in order to block it, there's several ways to do it, right? So if you were a country and wanted to block people from getting to Computer America, why would you? But you could block people from looking up the domain name computeramerica.com. But if someone knew the IP address, they could just get around that and get to Computer America anyway. So you could block that IP address and prevent people from going there. So suppose you wanted to change the IP address to something else, and you could do that, but then you have to have some way of letting those people in that blocked area knowing the new IP address. So it's just this continuous arms race. So what people have figured out is if you do a secure connection, HTTPS, it's where it's encrypted, you can actually send a request to another server that's in the cloud. So if you have a website that's in the cloud that's running on Amazon's servers, as an example, it applies applies to any cloud service, but we'll just use Amazon's as an example. Suppose you have Computer America running on Amazon's cloud service. If you have another device trying to connect to it, basically all they have to do is do a DNS lookup for any other domain that is also on that same cloud service. So suppose, Amazon.com. So you just tell your computer, all right, what's the IP address of Amazon.com? You get an IP address, you can start talking to it. And when you send your request encrypted through HTTPS, you can say, actually, I want computeramerica.com. But because it's in the same cloud, it doesn't care. It's like, all right, here you go. So it's just a way to get around blocking. And the reason it works is because China and Russia and these other countries aren't willing to block giant parts of the internet like that. Sure, they'll block an IP address here or a domain name here, but they're not going to block Amazon or they're not going to block Google. Right. And so people can bypass these by having their sites on these cloud services and then using these encrypted HTTPS requests to those cloud services for the website they actually wanted to go to. Boy, it's really more complicated than you would think. But does that make sense? Did I explain it well enough?
No, it absolutely does. And I guess the ability to block, although I remember hearing a couple weeks ago that that Russia tried to block that one app that was a Signal. There we go. Was trying to block Signal, and they did block. I don't know if it was like maybe an amateur web, kind of web engineer or something like that, but they did block Amazon Web Services and Google, like a couple of them, and of course it had like a chain reaction, and large swaths of the internet were blocked for Russians everywhere. Like I remember that actually happening.
That's exactly right. And that's why it happened. And so Russia and Iran and some of these other countries have come to Google and Amazon and said, hey, we got to do something about this. And it's called domain fronting because it looks like whenever you see that traffic going through, it looks like they're just talking to Amazon or they're just talking to Google because they are. But on those same servers within that same network are these other websites, and that's how they're able to get into it. So Google and Amazon both released statements here recently, almost in unison, and said, all right, we're not going to allow people to do domain fronting anymore. And in fact, it was never an official feature of the service. It was just kind of something someone figured out that, hey, this is just an accidental benefit. And they really haven't done anything about it because, I think because they also like the idea of this free open internet, right? If people find a way to bypass these government filters, that's not their problem. But there's discussions with Russia, and then all of a sudden these companies kind of turn their back and say, all right, enough of this. We're not going to allow you to do it anymore.
Yeah, it's
a real shame because it shuts down a lot of these services and restricts access to large parts of the internet to people in those regions.
Yeah, there's something going on with Russia and China. I know the article mentions Iran, but Russia and China, there's something really going on behind the scenes that I wrote an article, and I'm not sure if we talked about it with you, Mike, but I wrote an article about. Have you ever heard of Kaspersky?
Of course.
Yeah. They're well known in the antivirus and malware. They have one of the best labs in the world. They detect a lot of threats before other people. Like they're up there with some of the best security researchers out there.
Agreed.
But they were essentially ripped out of many local government contracts. They were banned from the United States. I believe that that Congress, which can, not talking about politics, but Congress, which is gridlocked, was able to push through a ban on Kaspersky Labs because they were in Russia, because they were Russian. And the entire time, Kaspersky is submitting their source code. They're denying all these allegations. They have no real evidence that they were actually spying on people. It was a big hullabaloo. And, that mixed with Huawei and the phones and the fact that the U.S. government banned, they didn't ban, they strongly pressured all the cell carriers to not make contracts for Huawei phones because they didn't want Chinese technology in the United States. That was like literally their reasoning. There's something going on here, cyber war wise, that I feel like Russia and China specifically are at odds with, like I feel like the companies are just like, we're companies, we're neutral, we're, kind of beholden to customers. And if they use our product in a meaningful way, that's fine. But there's some kind of political side to this that we're just not seeing. So I feel like
I think you're right. And it could be that Russia just said, hey, listen, if you guys don't straighten up and stop allowing this, we're just going to block you altogether from Russia. And, it could be something like that, or maybe some other some other door that, hey, you rub our back, we'll rub yours sort of thing. But there's definitely some kind of deal going on, I believe.
Yeah, like, I just feel like there's something there that I keep hearing these articles too often, and too many of them mention Russia specifically, for this not to be in the vein of something Russia's doing or something that America's doing that is leading to these companies to having to bend over backwards and change policies and do this, that. So, domain fronting, no longer available. You mentioned it was never explicitly a feature, but is this going to affect really any, is this only for circumventing censorship, or was this a legitimate feature for maybe changing things?
No, I can't think of a legitimate feature of it. There was a lot of illegitimate reasons to do it. Primarily, though, it was just being used to avoid censorship and blocks. And not just in other countries. If you had an internet connection that had a filter for some other reason, say in a school or a university or at work, in some cases, people were using this to be able to bypass those as well. But it had limited capabilities. It was mostly used by specific apps in specific countries. And it's just, I kind of am sad to see it, right? I'm kind of sad to see them take that stance and do it. But, it's their network. They can do what they want to do.
Yeah, part of it's like that. Part of it's where what's happening, you see it happening, and I feel like if there's that little bit of a workaround, then there's something that people can go, well, we lost this ability, but we still have a way to do this. And it keeps people from having a true conversation about, and because we're Computer America, about technology and the role of technology. And I feel like as you start to take away some of those alternatives, even if they are cumbersome or, a little bit sketchy, then you quickly start heading towards that conversation that you may have tried to shut down altogether. And I feel like, if they keep pursuing it so aggressively, Russia is going to have that conversation about censorship faster than if they just let this go on. So
probably so. So. I'd like to think that there's no way of really completely filtering people. People will always find a way around, especially in this day and age of the internet. But the fact of the matter is, filters keep getting better and better as well. And sure, some people will always find, hopefully always find some way around it, but not the masses. It becomes more and more difficult to do it.
Yep. So, all right. So, speaking of of censorship and filters and things like that, let's just touch lightly on Facebook, and then we're going to head off into break in like 2 minutes. But a lot of news coming out about Facebook. They are a company that I don't think has fully recovered from Cambridge Analytica. People are really questioning the role of Facebook, the power of Facebook, and at the same time, it's Facebook coming out, and I guess this was like their pep rally. They have like a yearly pep rally where they announce new features. And
I think they prefer to call it a conference, Ben.
Conference. They're one cheer squad away from it being a pep rally. But they had their conference, and they were announcing, kind of new features and new ideas and different things that they could do. A lot of it had to do with how are we going to get the confidence back. And then, of course, we're going to talk about things like the dating app. So let's see. Do we even have time to, kind of tease this? We have like a minute. So, Mike, just for a minute, let's talk, or just introduce people to the idea that Facebook tracks users and what Facebook is doing potentially.
Yeah, they do. And just like a lot of things do, people have always noticed that, as you browse different websites, I start looking at a shoe website and suddenly I get advertisements on Facebook and other places for shoes. It's kind of a running joke these days. Everyone has noticed it. And so they're talking about, giving you a little bit more control over that. I'm trying to figure out how else to tease that for another 30 seconds.
No, that's exactly it. And as I said, this is all having to do with fake news, and it's preventing people from being targeted too aggressively for, these kinds of
well,
stories.
and also to help people try to feel secure again and start to trust them again. They want to be more open, or at least appear more open, so that people are still willing to use their platform.
Yeah, and it was one of those things that Facebook came onto the scene. They came on after MySpace. MySpace said that they were fine, and I feel like Facebook flew under the radar for so long. This is a rude awakening for a lot of people. But folks, music means we're going to take a break. We'll be right back. More Computer America, more Mike Cermak, techguide.org, right after this. Everyone, stay tuned.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
800-215-4461. 800-215-4461. 800-215-4461. That's 800-215-4461.
We are all Brother Wolf. 10 years ago, a group of locals banded together to create positive change. We took animals into our homes, held adoption events at local retailers, and talked to the community about our mission to help build a no-kill Asheville. A decade later, we have achieved so many victories for animals in need. There's been so much progress, yet there's still so much to do. As part of our year-long celebration, we encourage you to become a member of our special Compassionate Circle program. With a monthly donation of $10 or more, you will have behind-the-scenes access to the work we are doing at Brother Wolf. Our goal is to reach 1,000 members because we receive no government funding. Working together, we can help build and sustain no-kill communities. Learn more at compassionatecircle.bwar.org. We are a 501c3 tax-deductible organization.
I'm an idiot. I've been talking this entire time and my microphone was muted. Welcome back to the Computer America Show. It is 32 minutes past the hour. And we continue on with Mike Cermak. And like I was saying, when none of you could hear me,
I think that we were censored by the Russian government.
Yeah, there you go. It was the Russians. Why not? And but yeah, like I was saying, techguide.org, your one-stop shop for, of course, all of your troubleshooting needs, and hey, maybe your new socializing needs, because hey, it's Facebook's old news. Just go to techguide.org. That's where you'll meet all of your new friends, and of course, get your family there. And hey, maybe the next love of your life, because I know that Facebook's coming out with the dating site. We'll talk about that. So of course, techguide.org is going to come up with a dating site. So this is all very.
I think that's a great idea.
Right. So yeah, me too. So with let's see. Yeah, let's go ahead and talk about this whole Facebook thing. Facebook has had a big, just a quick overview, has had a big problem with not just Cambridge Analytica, but really coming to terms with how much data they have on you. And every time we start to think that we have an idea of just how not invasive, but all-encompassing Facebook's data analysis is, we hear other stories such as even if you don't have a Facebook profile, they build a shadow profile about you. And while it may not have your name on it, they still collect data that is that is essentially about you without you actually having a profile. It's little stories like that that build up and make people really think, do we trust Facebook? Because Facebook is very, very nosy. So I guess to get some of that back, Mike, you have this article here talking about at their F8 conference that, and by the way, F8, that's page refresh, right? Just,
F5.
F5. Oh, that's F5. F8. I don't know. But either way, so yeah, they're trying to get some of the confidence back. What are they doing with this?
Yes. So the first thing that they announced near the beginning of their conference is a new feature that will try to create a little bit more transparency into what data they're collecting, and not only that, but give you a little bit more control. So it's a new setting called Clear History that will allow users to opt out of the connection between you surfing out on the internet and your actual personal profile in Facebook. And which is something that I think a lot of users probably will like, but most users will probably never see or use or care about. Right. It's one of those things. I don't know. So we hear so much about this, and on the other hand, I think there are so few people who actually give a darn about it. I'm not sure that most people really care that much about it, and I don't think most people care about this specific thing. That if I'm browsing for shoes and I start seeing ads for shoes, as far as I'm concerned, that's a benefit. I'd rather see that than ads for something I'm not interested in.
I think part of the conversation that gets lost sometimes is that when you say most people or these people or certain people, it's, of course, we focus here on America, Europeans like Europeans, we talk about all these different places, but you have to realize that I think they finally hit 2 billion monthly active users. So when you say most people won't even care about this, most people is probably going to be 1.7 billion people who are in different countries who don't have this kind of news coverage and will never be advertised that they can edit the amount of data that is being tracked about them. Like Facebook,
I would go even further. I would say most Americans who are on Facebook don't care.
Oh, for sure. Well, for absolutely sure.
Well, that was easy. I thought we would have a more interesting argument. I'm disappointed.
First of all, I don't like arguing with you because you are incredibly intelligent, and I would lose every single time. And and also you're very handsome and you're beautiful. But
oh man, now I got to send you all kinds of checks.
Thank you. So, but I will say that even myself, I read one of the articles and I went into my own user data and kind of checked out which applications had access to my data. Even I was surprised. Like, I'm a pretty judicious user of Facebook and permissions and things like that, and I guess over the course of many, many years, even I've tripped up a couple of dozen times and given companies that I really don't know full access to my information. And you're right, Facebook buried it under 4 sets of kind of drop down and nested menus. They don't want you to know about this, but at the same time, they are more than willing to make the headline and say that, hey, we're going to try this. It's going to be good for you, but they won't make it. No,
you're you're absolutely right. I agree with that 100%. It's out for the people who care about this. They can say, hey, look at this thing. They can point at this and say it's a thing. And for everyone else, they're not even going to know it exists.
Right. So, and all right. So this whole opt out, collect data on user activity. What do you think is the end result of this? Is this that the people who don't, or the people who actually use it, the people who clear their history from Facebook, does this mean that they still get advertised to, just less specific, or do you think that Facebook actually loses something? I mean, they give the feature, but what really happens if people actually do it?
Yeah, no, my understanding of it is that it just removes the personally identifiable information out of it. So you just are anonymous then, or your data is still there, but it's anonymized. It's not linked to your personal profile. So I think you're just, I think it just makes you a little bit more private, but not in a way that I particularly care about.
Did you know that Facebook, and I'm not making this up, this is not tinfoil, Facebook will go out and purchase personal information by the truckload, and apply it to their own user base. So even if you don't use Facebook, or you use Facebook and you have, maybe you're identified through your IP address, or maybe you do log in with your Facebook account, things like that, Facebook will go out to other services such as, maybe let's just say Zappos for instance, and they'll take all of their user data and combine it with their own user data. Facebook is a giant data gobbling vacuum. And I feel like even if they do this, they're still going to get enough data about you. It's not really going to matter. Like, this is such a bone thrown to the outrage. I don't feel like it's actually changing much. Like, they're not saying they're getting rid of, we're not going to track people's locations anymore. We're not going to track the devices that they're on. We're not going to track, like, all those are still there. It's just, hey, you can kind of clear it whenever you feel paranoid.
That's pretty much it. Yeah, you got it.
Okay, so there's that one. And hey, many people have been making news about this. Of course, it's, hey, we don't trust Facebook. Facebook is a scary entity. So Facebook says, well, we're going to throw these bones, and on top of that, we're going to meddle in your love life. And so this is making some news.
So the number of people who trust Facebook is down lower than probably ever. And what better thing to do than decide, we're going to start a dating app.
A dating app within Facebook. Like, this isn't like some, Facebook Love or, other thing. It's an application within Facebook that you can tie, I think, to a certain extent, although I think you do build a personal profile.
Yes, you do. So you build a personal profile and go in there and you upload pictures specific for dating, which are different than the pictures that you've uploaded for your Facebook profile, and your messages and everything are kept separate, supposedly, right? Until they make a little mistake and accidentally switch the two.
I guess if Ashley Madison can do it, so can Facebook.
Yeah, I forgot about Ashley Madison. Yeah, and the one thing that they kind of have going for them that is a neat idea is that they say that they will keep, I think it's an option, but in the dating profile, when you go in there, you won't be seen and you won't see people who are already your friends on Facebook. The idea of the dating app is to meet new people.
Right. So I guess
it says,
go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. They just say that avoids, a frequently awkward situation where you're in a dating app and, come across people who you already know.
I never got that. I've used dating apps for a while now, still single ladies, but I will say that I've used dating apps for a while. And, whenever I saw like a friend, because, you set it to your current location, and if you grew up in that town, you're going to know people, I always say hi to them. It's not like a super, it's not like a stupid secret that you're trying to keep.
Right.
And
it's not as awkward as when you see someone on Ashley Madison.
Right. Absolutely. Especially your wife. But I will say that when this happens, though, I guess some people were concerned that, like, it's going to pull from my contacts. It's going to send me other single friends that I already know, or maybe even potentially family members. That's just creepy. But
that is creepy. I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah, family on Facebook. It's a thing. Last thing you need is, flipping through and you see grandma and you're like, ooh, no. I do not need to know she likes long walks on the beach. But I will say that the idea of all this, it's pretty good. Facebook, they're in a business of, so they say, connecting people. They're obviously in the business of collecting data, but they're in the business of connecting people. And it seems like a no-brainer, and they said they've been thinking about this for a number of years. It's just weird at the timing. Like, I feel like they could have waited 6 months.
It's bad timing. Like, yeah. I'm sure this has been in the works for a long time. I'm sure this wasn't something that just decided one day, let's go ahead and launch. They were going to announce this one way or the other. But, man, I'm with you. I think that it would have been wise to hold off on this until next year.
Yeah. And I'm just trying to think, like, even if you take away all the controversy, even if you take away all the privacy concerns, would something like this be of interest to people? Because online dating, it's only getting big. It's only getting bigger, and I think on news of this, take stocks for what they are. I think stocks in OkCupid and Match.com, two of the biggest online dating websites out there, I think they fell by about a fifth. So they fell by about 20%.
Right.
On the news of this. It's I guess it's kind of
it's
like
not the news you want if you're in that business.
Right. It's kind of like the Google or the Apple effect, where there's such big companies, even if they break into a new segment of the market, or even Amazon, they they're going to start pushing even the established players out. So
right.
Pretty interesting.
Yeah, it's scary. I mean, on one hand, there's always going to be room for a dating app outside of Facebook, because there's enough people who don't want to use Facebook and won't use Facebook, and probably more of those now than there were 3 months ago. But but you're right. I mean, it's going to be a lot of people you already.
Right. And obviously you're going to need a Facebook account to make a Facebook dating profile. I can only assume that that's going to be, tied in with one another, even if they are directly connected.
And then how much of that data are they still going to be using back behind the scenes? I mean, because that's what they are in the business of. They offer all this for free, not out of the goodness of their hearts, but because they can shoot ads at you and sell your data. I mean, it's not really a secret. It was never a secret. That's just how badly they've managed it is kind of a surprise. But
it's how much of that data is going to be used to target your original Facebook profile with your dating profile, because that data, even if it's not publicly linked, it'll be behind the scenes linked. And hey, who knows? Maybe you'll start to be advertised. Things like vacations and getaways and gifts,
long walks on the beach, huh?
Yeah, there you go. It's just another front for them to collect data, and so far I have yet to read anything that says that they won't be combining the two pools of data. So
right, no, I think that they definitely will be behind the scenes.
Right,
yeah, they wouldn't go in and make this service if they weren't going to get something out of it.
Right. So there you have it, and it's. Like already announced, it's going to be one of the biggest, it's going to be one of the biggest services out there. And it's, again, just kind of bad timing. I don't think it's a bad idea. I think it's a great idea for Facebook, just bad timing. So
yeah, it feels awkward. Yep.
Yep, there you go. So, all right. So let's see. We have that story, and I think we're done talking about Facebook for a bit. But we can squeeze in a story and maybe one more after it. But we can talk about Nikola Tesla, and not Nikola Tesla, but Nikola and Tesla, two companies. You brought this one up. It's a very interesting idea, because I think if people weren't paying attention, they'd think that Nikola Motors was a subsidiary of Tesla Motors, but that's not the case. And yeah, there's some drama there between the two now.
Yeah, there is indeed. So Tesla Motors, of course, is the well-known car manufacturer. They actually changed their name about 2 years ago, I think, and they're now just Tesla, because they don't make just cars. They make battery packs and solar panels and all sorts of things. A entirely separate company called Nikola Motors, also named after Nikola Tesla, who did a lot of AC power work. And DC power work for that matter. But both these companies are named after him, but neither one are actually directly related to him, and they're not related to one another. It's just coincidental, naming. Nikola Motors is working on making a hydrogen semi-truck, and had announced it some time ago in 2016, I believe, and December 2016. And then here, last year, Tesla comes and announces their Tesla semi-truck. And it looks suspiciously similar. I have to admit that. But so here's the thing. They're suing. Nikola Motors. Every time I say Nikola, I want to say Nikola Tesla.
Right.
Nikola Motors is suing Tesla. It's so hard to tongue twist yourself out of that one, for patent infringement, that they've stolen certain key design elements from them, specific things like the shape of the truck itself, which all right. So if you look at the picture side by side, as I know you have been, they do look similar insofar as any modern semi-truck would look. Like if you're going to make one that is sleek and is low friction, what's the word I'm looking for?
Aerodynamic.
Aerodynamic, thank you. And if you imagine in your head a modern aerodynamic truck, it looks like that, both of them. Like, I'm not. Do you know what I'm saying?
No. There's only so many ways, and I wanted to do some CSI trickery where I could like kind of overlay one to the next. I mean, there are some similarities. I don't think that they're anything unique. Like, if you grew up in the 90s and you looked at anything futuristic, you had like that inset black glass that kind of wrapped around, seamless, wasn't paneled off. You have something vaguely related to a regular semi-truck, but at the same time more modern with less curves. I mean, they look similar side by side. It's a question.
They do look similar, right?
Yeah.
So
go
going
ahead.
to the patent specifically, it's interesting you point out the windshield, because that is one of the key parts of this whole case. Nikola Motors designed what they call the wrap windshield, a unique feature in the trucking industry, and it's identifiable from a distance that it's a Nikola truck, and it's a wrap windshield to provide drivers an unobstructed view. And Tesla copied it, apparently. I don't know. If they own the patent of a wraparound windshield, that's a hard thing to fight, right? I mean, this goes back to we've had discussions before, Ben and I, about our whole patent system and issues with it and so on. But if they legitimately, it almost feels like a patent troll thing. Like, we're going to go ahead and and some of these others are even more so. So also the aerodynamic look of the, thank you, chat room and Ben, aerodynamic is the word I was looking for, is a continuous line from the front of the vehicle through the roof. And it's a patented design that is unique in the trucking industry. Like, that one, I don't know.
Yeah. The idea that the windshield should, or at least you should have visibility as far as you can, that doesn't seem very unique. The wraparound part, I mean, Ray-Bans, I think, invented that a while ago. It's not. And
that's probably what Tesla will have to do here, right? Say that there's other demonstrated examples of where these same features have been in other products or have been demonstrated in at least concept vehicles and so on. And I think they'll be able to find examples. Ray-Bans might not be their best one. You might not be the best attorney for them to hire. But I suspect they can find other vehicles that have that. Maybe I don't know. None's coming to mind to me, but I don't know much about trucks or vans. I think about when I'm in like a big motor coach bus. Like some of those windshields, I think, I don't know, maybe they don't wrap around, but they are ginormous. I just don't know.
Yeah, it's they do look similar, and the amount of money that they're asking, again, if anyone missed that, $2 billion, and that's for patent infringement.
$2 billion with a B.
Yep.
Yeah, I just had to reinforce that.
Yeah, it's certainly a lot, but at the same time, it's a question of, did they actually infringe on patents? Were they inspired by it? I guess it's going to come down to who can document their design philosophy further back. And if they can prove that, hey, before Nikola ever came on the scene, we had a mock-up of this, then they're in the clear.
If they had that would be really good, but right. I would be kind of surprised if they do. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know.
It's certainly interesting. I mean, but and just to be clear, Nikola Motors, they're hydrogen, and Tesla is strictly electric, right? Like they can't argue on the technology was directly ripped off, correct?
That's right. Yep, exactly. Although, hydrogen technology, all it is a hydrogen cell that then feeds into a lithium-ion battery that feeds into an electric motor. So, I mean, it's the same thing. It's just, whoops, did I just lose my mic?
No, you're good. You're good.
Am I still here or am I gone?
Yep, you're good.
I'm gone.
Maybe he accidentally muted himself. But at the same time, I mean, so there's that. I'm not quite sure if
am I back now?
Yeah, you were the entire time.
I was there, but you were gone. I was on a mistake on my end. I'm sorry. I got too excited and bumped the wire. Yeah. So anyhow, it's the same technology. It's just Tesla goes one step further and removes the whole hydrogen tank. But I don't think that the technology side of it is at all what they're suing over. I really think it's just the aesthetics and the exterior design aspects of it.
See, and for anyone out there watching the video portion, I was trying to remember exactly what I was thinking of, and it wasn't wraparound, but it was this design. I'm not sure if any of you have Regal theaters near you. This was kind of the opening sequence to Regal theaters back in 2010, And it, kind of the sleek design, kind of thing, less curves. And I thought that the windshield wrapped around on the CGI roller coaster kind of deal. But yeah, again, just the idea of sleek and black glass just doesn't scream, perjury to me. It just seems kind of obvious. So, all right.
Well, and apparently I'm reading an article now called Whatever Happened to Wraparound Windshields and Windscreens on Cars. And they go through how difficult it was to make them strong enough and why, the legislation on, crush requirements and A-pillars and so on. And so there must have been some that had it before.
I think that although one of our chatters in the chat room, he listed a pretty
Thank
list
you. Good job.
Yeah. He has like 6 different cars here, and I'm looking through some of these. Some of these are curved windshields. I mean,
now this is the guy that Tesla needs to hire, not Ben. We need to hire the chat room.
There you go. But yeah,
but I think that works, right? I mean, I'm not an attorney, but I think if they can point to this and say this is not a new concept, plenty of people have done this in the past. We didn't rip it off from you. We ripped it off from Stratus and Studebaker and Chevy and BMW.
One thing I don't like is that some of the articles I've read have called Nikola Motors a patent troll. And I feel like a patent troll has a very specific definition. And it's someone who develops a patent, purposely very broad and vague, and goes after companies for money that, while they never utilize the patent themselves, they are, claiming that they're infringing their ability to sell their product because larger companies are, stealing their ideas. And Nikola Motors is not doing that. They are actually building trucks. So despite
I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right, and that's a very good clarification. But have they built any trucks?
They have, they of course have the concepts. We've seen that out on the road, and I think they've only sold like a couple to, businesses for like, kind of PR stunts. But yeah, they're a smaller manufacturer. They're kind of like a Faraday Future. I mean, they're trying. So
I don't know. I think that's going to make Nikola look bad to compare them to Faraday Future. But I think I would place Nikola a little bit higher than Faraday Future on my scale.
That's fair.
But your point taken to that extent that I think that they're probably less of a patent troll than what people are making them out to be. Although, I mean, I think some of these concepts are pretty vague. I mean, the idea of a distinct fender and overall design and to sue them for $2 billion. But hey, whatever. One thing it is doing, though, is getting them a lot of press and people aware that they even exist.
That's true. And, $2 billion, I doubt that they'll get it. But at the same time, it's, if nothing else, press. There you go. All right, so let's cover one more topic before we go. And I didn't send this to you, but I'll just give you the broad strokes. We covered this a couple of days ago. Wanted your reaction. And Mike, I assume that you enjoy fast internet.
Of course.
Good. And I believe it was in the Houston area and parts of Washington State, where Comcast was tying the ability to get free broadband upgrades to having cable bundles. So it's like you could either buy the internet and pay an increased price, pay a set price and then increase that through increased payments, or if you already had cable bundled through them or wanted to add bundle later on, they would automatically increase your speed for no cost. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it was just this idea that, they were upping people's cable speeds, but only those who had cable. So cord cutters, of course. Yes. So cord cutters were livid. And I just wanted to see your idea of, how you felt that cable companies are kind of trying to slow the downfall of cable television by tying it in with other unnecessary tie-ins.
Yeah, sure. I tend to believe companies should generally be allowed to do whatever they want to do. So if they want to give perks to people who spend more money with them than others, then I don't have a problem with that necessarily. I'm not a big fan, and I don't know what the solution is, but I'm not a big fan of Comcast basically being a monopoly in the areas where they are. I mean, there's many areas where you get Comcast or you get dial-up. I mean, in some cases you can get Comcast or DSL, but and in very, very few places there's fiber. But
Yeah.
in a lot of places, if you want internet more than 5 megabit, you're getting, cable, whoever owns the lines there. So, but anyhow, but as far as this goes, I don't know. They're giving you the speed that you agreed to, that you paid for. They're not giving you a free upgrade. Suck it up.
Oh, there you go. And I think that is the perfect way to end the episode. Suck it up, folks. It's going to be okay. And yeah, so for everyone out there, again, techguy.org. Highly recommend it. If you have any problems, go check it out. And in the meantime, Mike, thank you so much. And yeah, I believe you have some stuff happening with kids and things. We'll talk to you about that. But yeah, we'll see what's going on there. And everyone, again, techguy.org, Computer America, show notes, check it out. And until next time, everyone, have a great day. Thank you so much. And yeah, catch you next time. Bye, everyone.